Welcome to the Rider's Edge podcast, a platform to share conversations about the health and wellness of horse and rider. I'm your host, Farley Schweigert. Hey y'all, it's Farley with the Rider's Edge podcast, and today I want to chat about how your horse's health depends upon your riding. But first, let me say happy 1 year to Rider's Edge podcast. We started this adventure last June, so happy summer, happy 1 year. I can't believe we've had conversations for a whole year, but here we are. So thank you very much for coming on the ride with me, and thank you for sharing it with your friends. This little podcast that could is growing and growing, and I'm so excited about where it's going. So this recording is in June 2020, and I think this is going to be an interesting conversation today. No matter whether you're trying to plan a summer run or summer horse shows because of the COVID pandemic, either one of those scenes looks very differently from the norm. Competition is tougher and tighter than it's ever been, and that has nothing to do with the pandemic. It has been going that way for years. But I do think it's a little bit more squished together because of the decreased availability of places to go. So there are more, I know on the professional rodeo side of things, there are more entries than they're having to do a lot more creative entering, and they're limiting and drawing people out because of the increase in entries due to the decrease in places to go. So, and it's going to be the same thing with horse shows, cuttings, reinings, or similar issues as far as the competition, maybe not the entering side of things, but definitely the competition. So, no matter whether you go to jackpots, Saturday night horse shows, quarter horse shows, you AMI rodeo or professionally rodeo, you're going to have a different looking summer. And everybody is still rejoicing in the northern hemisphere that it is summer. That's what horse people live for, or at least this one does. Because I hate being cold. So I don't gripe about being hot. But in looking at things differently in your program and how you're entering and what you're doing this summer, have you looked at yourself and your horse and what you can be doing to be getting better? Now, it's super easy to and fun to work on your riding, your training, to get your horse better, to do more. But are you working on yourself? Your horse's health depends upon your riding. Now, there are a lot of factors to your horse's health, but we're going to go down this one trail today of talking from a more orthopedic standpoint, from talking more of a performance standpoint, and how you maintain your horse, what you have to do for them. So, horses share the same anatomy that we do. The percentage is, I think, well over 60% shared anatomy, which is huge. If you really look at the comparative of the anatomy, they walk on our fingernails and toenails. So if you think about that, where we saddle our horses, right behind their shoulders and their thoracic spine, is the weakest part of their back. So they are carrying 150 to 200 pounds, plus or minus a lot, depending upon the discipline, tack, size of the rider, everything like that. So they're carrying a huge weighted backpack in the weakest part of their back and asked to do extraordinarily athletic maneuvers for us. And they do it because we ask them to. They do it because we've trained them to. They don't know that, you know, they don't know the difference in being up at Congress or the World Show versus your Saturday Night Horse Show versus Pendleton or Woodward, Oklahoma, or whatever. Now, I beg to differ. They might know the difference in being at Pendleton when they get to that large, very large green mile. But other than that, the point is they do things because we ask them to. Now, they key off of us. We all know that. And so they'll get more hyped at different situations because we do. But they don't look at the books. They don't know what is the reward for that given contest. They're just doing things because we ask them to. So, how you ride can affect their health. If you have been having back pain, SI pain, if you are imbalanced through your torso, through your pelvis, you radiate that onto your horse. Our horses, again, do things because we ask them to. They also have to compensate for our shortfalls. If you analyze your runs, you can even slow down and look at things like that. I'm going to talk about that particularly from a barrel run aspect today because that's where I've analyzed it the most. You can do that with the horsemanship pattern, with your reining pattern, anything. But our horses are going to compensate for our shortfalls in our fitness and our posture, and they're going to work to stay underneath us. So imagine this. So imagine a horse turning a barrel, and its rider is let's look at the second barrel. Imagine a horse turning the second barrel. It is the most complete turn of the barrel pattern, right? And as they're getting ready to accelerate and leave for the third, the rider is not fully with them. They slow down, and if centrifugal force has sent that rider's weight, let's say, to the outside some, that they're not, fully engaged with their core and coming up with their horses, that horse is ready to, that stride away from the barrel, really ready to extend through its hind end and accelerate towards the third. They have to wait. They're going to shift their weight. They might even bow out from that barrel. And in order to feel like you are fully with them, because they're emotional beings, they care. We spend a lot of time with our horses and they care about us. So they're going to do some, and it's very slight. Like these things that you have to look at are often seen in slow motion or different slower speeds of a video than the full speed. And then once you kind of can key into it, you can see it more at real time. But they'll wait for us. They'll shift. They may not accelerate as fast and do a number of little bitty things to help us, to keep us safe and keep us with them, which is a great thing. Much better. It's the reason why I ride horses and not bicycles, because it's much safer for me. There are plenty of scars on my knees from bicycles and maybe a couple of flower pots that shouldn't have been broken because my bicycle never did things like that when I came around a curve. So they'll do things like that. They will put up with, if you are working really hard to get towards your goal and you're riding, every day 5 6 days a week or more, you're putting in repetition. You're putting in repetition. Not only are you putting in the good things that you need to accomplish your goal, no matter what task you're working on, you are also putting in the repetition of the subtle idiosyncrasies that the horses have to put up with. And over time, that can wear on them. Over time, if you are compensating through your SI, say you are having pain in your right SI or your right lower back, often when you head to the vet, you may have right-sided pain in your horse. They may have pain in their SI. Your vet may say, oh, they flex tested more positive on the right than the left. It could even be a front end issue versus a hind end issue. Remember, horses carry most of their weight through the front end, and then you put the rider on top of them, kind of right there at that junction of the front end towards the back end. So while this typically isn't a major health issue, as far as an acute issue or anything like that, it can wear over time and cause decreased performance. It can cause higher vet bills, more time off, more time at the vet, different things like that. So in this new realm of things, what are you doing to work on your riding to help your horse's health, to help their orthopedic performance health, so that they aren't sore muscles or get sore at the joints, and that continues to perpetuate into a problem that may be as subtle as hundredths of a second to a tenth of a second, may be subtle as in a half a point difference to a point difference in a judged event. And we very well know that those can add up quickly, very quickly. So, it may be, for women, it may be changing some equipment. It may be getting a more supportive bra. I talked with Sarah Marie from SheFit, and we talked a lot about how that works. So catch that episode if you haven't. But I do know for me personally, I've had 2 different times in my career where changing anything through my chest has totally affected my riding, to the point where the first time it happened, I had to relearn how to post. When I returned to riding the first time, after having some different changes go on, I would lead with my shoulders. It was a very weird little move that I would do. I would lead with my shoulders and then my hips to post at a trot. And that took some rebalancing, some reworking through my riding and my body awareness to correct that. Additionally, like I talked on the podcast with Sarah Marie, finding her product changed my riding. And same thing. That's the first place I noticed it, was posting in a trot. It changed how I did that again. So if you are supported well and you are not being, whether it's self-conscious or whether it's even a subconscious self-conscious, you may not know that that would change your riding that much. For women who are bigger busted, it is a huge game changer for you and your horse. Huge. And I would say to women who are smaller chested, still do it, even if you come at me and say, I'm one of the lucky ones. I don't need a whole lot of support. I'm so small. I can just wear whatever. Try it. Get in a more supportive bra and try it and see if it doesn't change something that maybe you didn't even know you needed to work on. And also, like we said that in that podcast, it's a good support for the breast tissue. So simple changes like that. We've talked about core strength, and we'll continue to talk about core and the pelvic floor in Rider's Edge and how important it is to riding. And if you are weak there, it shows. You're not going to be able to stay with your horse when accelerating. And what happens there is, we commonly know, then we get to hanging on their head, and then that causes other issues. So, so being strong throughout there is super important. I'll say it here, and I will probably say it again and again on Rider's Edge. Ladies, you should not be worried about whether you leak when you ride. If you are having trouble, if you are concerned about leaking on your saddle through your jeans, then we have a lot of pelvic floor issues that need to be addressed. And they can be addressed with a physical therapist so that you can have better quality of life. You can not be worried about that. You can not have to worry about riding with a pad and enjoy your riding, because if you're having trouble with those things, your riding is hugely affected as well. And the great thing about this sport is that there's a place for everybody in it. There are different levels of competition where everybody can find a place where they enjoy and they can meet their goals, whether they are competitive goals or social goals or a combination of both. So if you are having trouble with that, there is hope. There is a place to get better with that. And Rider's Edge can help you with that. Any pelvic floor physical therapist can help you with that, and we'll be happy to work with you or help set you up with somebody local if we can. Oh, it's and guys, if you're listening, it's the same thing for you. If you need, if you're having issues, guys have a pelvic floor too. But if you're having any kind of issues, and I recognize that they are so taboo to talk about, but we're going to talk about them because we can help. There are things that we can do. So if you, whether you are at that extreme of having that issue, whether it's that you're so worrisome about that when you're riding, or you just have a little bit of that issue and you're continuing to ride and it's not affecting that, it still can be a sign that there's an issue in your pelvic floor, and your pelvis is the foundation of your riding, as we've talked about a lot. So we need to address what we can address so that we can get better. So how do we do that? How do we? We're talking about little simple things. We're talking about being in the arena 365, as we've started talking about earlier this year, and as in so many ups and downs. We haven't quite continued that conversation, but really the meaning behind in the arena 365 is doing what you can with what you have. If you are not doing any kind of exercises and you commit to 10 minutes a day before you get out of bed, or when you're on a break at lunch, or whatever, that's going to start to add up. It's going to start compounding and have that compound effect on your riding, on your goals. So if it is 10 minutes of doing some pelvic exercises or some core exercises or even some scapular stabilization for your roping shoulder, just like roping the dummy, if it is 10 minutes of roping the dummy every day versus an hour where we know we're going to continue to wear on our shoulder, if we do an hour, twice a week or every other day, it's just it's just working smarter with what we have. And as that compound effect grows, so does our confidence, so does our physical changes in our riding. And we'll end up typically doing more, wanting to do more, be better, be faster, ride better. And we'll kind of add on to that, and it becomes a much simpler and less daunting task to do that. And as your posture, your riding gets better, your horse is having to compensate less for you, and that's gonna decrease the amount of stress on them. We're talking about tiny little things that are going to continue to add up. It's just the same with your training, with your foundation of starting a horse or teaching them a new task. You start with the small things and they continue to add up over time, and they just kind of have that snowball effect. It's the same thing, just kind of reverse engineered. Just kind of reverse engineering into controlling what we can control in order to mitigate our adverse effects on our horses. Controlling what we can control to decrease the amount of stress and strain on our horses in order to perform better, in order to increase the amount of time of their career span, no matter what level you're at, because we love our horses and we want to keep them going. When we jam with one, we want to keep going as long as we can, as far as we can. So let's start taking some responsibility for our role in their orthopedic performance health. Let's start doing the small tasks, because all of our summers are going to look differently. So maybe part of your summer goal is to really delve into your riding. Have somebody video you. Have somebody you trust come ride with you and get real about where your riding is at this moment. And then start reverse engineering that and start breaking it down. Okay, this is kind of what I see as the main thing right now. How do I address that? We can always help you with that here at Rider's Edge through a video chat. It's super easy to accomplish, and help you start on a program to get to your goals, because this is super important to me as I've dealt with different horses' health, and even trying to, I'll be real honest, trying to decrease vet bills, because holy moly, they can start having a runaway real quick. So I hope that gives you some food for thought for how you're planning out your summer and what it looks like. Because if you put in the work now, as things change and develop and move forward, you'll be that much more prepared to move forward with them. So it may be a good time to slow down, take a break, and really change your program and dive in deep in order to be further ahead at a later date. Oh my goodness, y'all, I am I talk about this a lot. I'm so passionate about this little podcast and so excited about where it's been and where it's going, and I just appreciate you guys so much. Make sure and share this with somebody that might need to hear it. It'll give you a little bit of, if I can get you to think and change a few things, that's going to help you and your horse. And that's what it's all about, because at the end of the day, it's a partnership. So thank you guys for tuning in. And as always, I will see you down the road. Thank you for listening to Rider's Edge Podcast. For show notes and other thoughts, head over to ridersedgetherapy.com. If you would like to stay connected and continue the conversation, head over to my free Facebook group, Rider's Edge Health and Wellness for Horse and Rider. Thanks for continuing the conversation, and as always, I will see you